Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Nur Ammar Izzuddin, and this is the last video assignment for creative writing. And without further ado, let's just get into it. The first topic of today is poems and lyrics. Poems and lyric have a very near distinct relationship between the two of them. Both of the concept defined as composition of words. Lyrics can even considered as form of poem, but also differentiate cause the music aspect. Poetry has its own aspect of music from the poem itself, caused by the usage meter in poems. Unlike unlike music, which music come from an outer source, another aspect that can see to be similar is the basic form, where poems and lyrics have lines in stanza. But the ways these line in these are also different because one is able to be read and listened and result the lines in poems is visible, while other was meant mostly to be listened, making lyrics line ends to be clear, whether depending on rhymes or melodies. This different ways of these two perceive also resulted in the usage of language, where poems can be read and the beauty comes from the various of diction, which probably can be hard for readers, but they have time to understand it. This is a different case for lyrics, where lyrics are meant to be felt while listening to it, forcing the lyricist to be more straightforward with their lyrics. The composition of ideas in poems and lyrics also near distinct, where poems can have one or more ideas and jump from one to other ideas, while for lyrics heavily depends on the repetition of the main idea, which came in form of chorus. Okay, the second topic is flash fiction. Flash fiction is super short stories, usually between 100 to 150 words to 700 to 50 words. It's a challenging genre that requires efficient storytelling due to the limited word count. When writing flash action, you should have key elements like characters, obstacle, actions, and change in the story. Keep it simple by focusing on the main story, having one main character, and not adding unnecessary details. Trust your readers to understand the story even if they interpret it slightly differently. There are two main ways to write flash fiction. First, start with a short idea to or write a longer story and edit it down. Both have pros and cons. So choose what works for you. Keep a list of short phrases to remember stories ideas, and when writing, make every sentence count. Use characters' action to tell the story, and vary the pace. Narrate through one character's voice, either in first or third person. Don't be afraid to break some rules and add unexpected twists to make your flash fiction stand out. Hey, flash fiction is a great training ground for writing, but it's not the only genre. You can also write longer stories or explore other types of writing. Understanding the flash fiction can help you construct smaller units within longer texts, like scene and chapters. And you can even create a sequence of flash fiction that form a cohesive, cohesive, cohesive whole in a collection or book. So while flash fiction is fantastic, it's just one tool in writer's toolkit for different types of stories. Okay, the next topic, writing as experimental practice. Okay, for someone who wants to do writing as an experimental practice, the author suggests exploring specific experimental approach to writing as a way to break away from familiar habits and embrace the unknown. These approaches are presented as categories to provide inspiration, but the writer is encouraged to adapt and innovate within these categories. Okay, the first category is mixed media and mixed genre. This approach challenges readers to consider how they engage with literature. shifting from the passive act of reading to a more dynamic and interactive experience. For instance, stories can be composed using digital sounds, poetry can become a radio play, and narratives can be presented through unconventional mediums like CD-ROMs or site-specific installation. Okay. Second is other languages. In the realm of experimental writing, there is a growing exploration of languages and discourse that are traditionally considered unsuitable or incompatible with the conventions of creative writing. This challenges the conventional notion of a writer relying solely on their internal thoughts and imagination as their source of inspirations. Instead, experimental writers incorporate multiple languages and vocabulary from various disciplines such as television, sports, religion, science, and more. Okay, the third topic is confound, invert, and makes strange traditional genre expectation. In the realm of experimental writing, there exists a rich tradition of blending poetry and prose forms, giving rise to the subgenres like prose poetry, sudden fiction, new narrative, and L equal A equal N equal G equal U equal A equal G equal E language poetry. These forms challenge conventional notions of prose sentence and linearity as an and linearity as an exercise challenge. Writers are encouraged to explore the limits of what they consider a story or a poem. They may question whether it must be written down, include words, or feature characters. Okay, the challenge lies in pushing beyond one's own preconceived limits, okay, and creating something definitively outside the boundaries of traditional storytelling or poetry, into narrative or poems without conforming to conventional form. Okay, next is mediative poetics and automatics writing. Another strand of experimental writing focuses on the application of contemplative or meditative practice to the act of writing. The goal here is to challenge authorial ownership, the ego, and break free from the habits or thoughts patterns. This strategy prioritizes the cultivation of awareness without the imposition of conceptual or intellectual filters. Writing that emerges from this practice reveals new relationships and qualities in the world, unhampered by the constraints of names and other mental habits that limit perceptual possibilities. Okay, next is page and performance dynamic. Experimental writing challenges the convention of the book form by exploring alternative assumptions and possibilities. It questions the need for durability, legibility, and reproducibility, and embrace the use of perishable materials or presenting writing as a form of visual art or architectural installation. This approach aims to enhance the performance qualities of text, whether through unconventional page spacing or innovative book structure. It intentionally places the issue of legibility at stake, encouraging readers to engage with the text in a unique way. Okay, next is procedural writing. Procedural writing is a form of experimentation that introduces intention and accident into the creative process. Writers engage in this practice by establishing specific procedures on constraints that guide their writing. This constraint can range from using found language in a particular context to incorporating change elements into the narrative. Okay, next and the last is alternative form of authorship collaboration. These various approaches to writing practice, including procedural writing, collage, cut-ups, collaborations, and collective forms of writings challenge and redefine the traditional role of the writers as a role as the sole creators or genius. They introduce a sense of play that's exploration into the creative process, emphasizing the act of following the material and being open to the unforeseen outcomes. Hmm. Outcome. This practice moves beyond the confines of individual vision, modeling a different kind of world where creatively emerge from collective efforts and change encounter. Okay, the fourth and the last topic is creative critical hybrids. Creative and critical hybrid is an instance where creative and critical writing that used to be a different field of writing are combined together in a single writing. It all began when academic essays have been stagnant for many years. In the early era, many scholars are grown impatient to those kind of scholarly writing, so they started to implement some narrative writing into their academic essay. Despite all of that, this hybrid intervention then do not emanate only from critics, but just as much from creative writers impelled towards criticism and theory. And here are some approach of creative critical hybrid. First is poem and essay, a fusion of essay and poem. Some of the poetic features that tend to distinguish it are line breaks, extensive use of metaphor, and disjunctiveness. Means switching from one topic to another abruptly rather than by means of smooth transition. Okay, the second approach is dialoguing and commentary. Writing tend to be intertextual, often dialoguing with other texts by commenting on or quoting from them. Third is stealing and subversion. Extract features of the academic essay but subvert them as part of the project of creative writing. Fourth is the sandwich effect. Writing content are alternating between critical and creative writing. Okay, the key conclusion. Creative critical hybrids can therefore take many different forms. Sometimes they may seem more like works of criticism or theory, sometimes more like creative works that have critical and theoretical aspects. Whichever, they disrupt any clear distinction between the two. Hybrid works do not always have to be page-based. They can also appear in performance and new media forms. As mentioned earlier, such works often have a performative aspect because they are multi-voiced. Some even if written for the page may deliberately adopt a performance styles. Okay, some exercise that can be done to improve one's creative critical hybrids are to rewrite an essay you have written that has critical and theoretical content until it includes autobiographical, narrative or poetic material, and write a poem essay on the topic that interests you. Okay, that's it for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.